Evening, members. I'd like to remind everyone present that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of subsequent repeated viewing, with copies of the recording being made available to those that request it. By being present at this meeting, it is likely that the recording cameras will capture your image, and this will result in your image becoming part of the broadcast. You should be aware that this may infringe your human and data protection rights. If you have any concerns, then please speak to the webcasting officer. Members, I don't need to remind you, when you're speaking, turn your microphone on, and when you've finished, turn your microphone off. Can I have any apologies for absence, please?
Chairman, we've got apologies from Councillors Lyon and Williamson.
Thank you. Members, any declarations of interest? No? None online. Thank you. Any additional reports from portfolio holders? No? Oh, Councillor Holly Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to note, since we last met, we had the official opening of Spink's House in Waltham Abbey, which was 2 new family homes named after Don Spinks, who's a former chairman of this council, and Liz Webster, also a former chairman of this council, was there to open it. It was a really good event, a good opportunity to celebrate our council house building programme and producing family homes for local people. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members? Members,
sorry, are you going to do minutes?
Oh, I'll have to go back to the minutes in a minute. Members, whilst the appropriate, the chairman will make appropriate announcements at full council, I think it's worth noting the sad passing of our late Queen over the past month. And of course, I'd like to thank our officers who worked extremely hard to make sure that the organisation locally was very well executed and carried out. So thank you to those officers involved. I know the chairman will say more at full council, so I won't elaborate this evening, but just wanted to make a special mention of all our officers who worked very tirelessly to make sure things run smoothly, and we do thank you. Minutes of the last meeting, can I take those as being agreed? Thank you. Public questions or requests to address the Cabinet? I'm not aware of any.
None, Chairman.
Thank you. Report of overview and scrutiny. Councillor Helen Kane.
Thank you, Chairman. We had the latest one a couple of days ago, where the committee pre-scrutinised the Council's corporate plan 2023-2027. This key strategic planning document detailed a new set of corporate aims, including a new set of key results developed to support the aims and key objectives. These corporate aims would be reviewed annually through objectives and key result measures to deliver and work towards the achievement of each objective that year. Members made several suggestions, such as to clarify that Epping Forest was referring to Epping Forest District, not just the forest, the inclusion of references to historical Enfield Hill forts, more on the Council's focus on health, climate change, waste recycling, and the relationship building opportunity the Council had with local councils. And then we had the strategic, the Qualis Qualis business plan. In the rapidly changing current economic climate, considerable economic pressures were put on the Council's finances, and although Qualis should produce a 4-year business plan under the shareholder agreement in this time of great uncertainty, the decision has been made that the 4-year business plan would be too challenging and be out of date sooner than forecast. Members raised many questions which were answered by the finance portfolio holder, Councillor Philip, the Strategic Director and Qualis Group Managing Director, Sasha Jevers. Chairman, I have also agreed to an extra overview and scrutiny committee meeting to be held on Thursday, the 3rd of November, to pre-scrutinise the business case for the transfer of grounds maintenance to Qualis. And that is for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Kane. Any members of the Cabinet, any queries from that report? No. Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a few points, but I will keep them brief. I thought it was a very good meeting of ONS this week. And as the Chairman has said, we did have a look at the corporate plan. I understand why we didn't have it, but I do think it was a pity that the leaders forward wasn't there. And we will look very carefully at what the leader writes in terms of the forward to that corporate plan, because by its very nature, that's likely to be the more political part of the that strategic document. So just saying, leader, that certainly as one councillor, and I'm sure there are others, we will look very carefully at what you write. I won't repeat the remarks I made at the meeting about Qualis, but I will just bring them to members of the Cabinet attention and other people who might be listening to this webcast or the recording of the webcast later, because of the seriousness of the items later on in this agenda. A number of us, including myself, did make some fairly detailed points about the Qualis one-year plan. I wanted to thank Councillor Helen Kane for the approach that she's taken to ONS this year, where we really are focusing our entire scrutiny on EFDC, and with some of the items that are further into this Cabinet meeting, I think scrutiny will be helpful to all people. And I was delighted to receive the email today about the special meeting to look at grounds maintenance. I'm certainly not claiming to be the only one, but I was one of the councillors that was very, very keen that we have a proper scrutiny of that transfer before it takes place. And then one final thing, which I didn't know I was going to say, but I know I couldn't bring it up under portfolio reports, because that was made clear at the last meeting. And I don't wish to put Councillor Holly Whitbread on the spot, but she referred to the opening of the Spinks development. I just wondered if it's now considered that it's too late now to do the Davis Court opening in memory of Joan Davis. I know that was planned and then it was replanned and it got caught up in COVID. And I just wanted to say that there are some people in Loughton, her family, and certainly me as one of her former colleagues, would probably still like that to take place. But I do understand if the Housing Department feel that that moment has passed. I don't know whether Councillor Whitbread can respond tonight or she can respond to me by email if that's what she would prefer. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Holly Whitbread.
Thank you, and thank you to Councillor Murray for that question. I'm looking at Deborah over the room, and I am aware that actually this was kind of put aside and actually should have been picked up. So we'll try and do something to mark that actually it was a really good development as well, and a real kind of showcase of the best of our council house building programme. So I'll have a chat with Deborah and officers, and we'll try and get something arranged.
Okay, members, let's go on to the main business of the evening. If we go straight away to item 8, which is Q1 Budget Monitoring Report, Councillor Phillip.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll make the assumption that my Cabinet colleagues have read the detail of this report. What we're basically saying is that this is the start of the time when it's going to be really difficult. I think all members know the general issues that we have in the economy as a whole at the moment. We do have a pressure on our budgets from staff increases. We budgeted just over 2% for that this year. It's looking like an average pay award roughly in the region of 5%. And just to put this in context, far and away our biggest expense in our budget is our staff costs. So that's a significant pressure. Local plan, we are seeing fewer planning applications coming forward as we do not yet have an adopted local plan, which we expected to have by this stage when we're doing the budget process. That's only compounded by the additional pressures on the construction industry at the moment. So we're seeing a significant reduction in money coming in through the planning department. We're looking at an underspend on the HRA at this stage, but we may see that change as the impact of fuel costs and staff costs begin to hit on that as well. We do have a predicted overspend for 2022-23 of just over £1 million at this stage, but that is probably out of date by now, and it certainly will be out of date by the time I finish speaking because of the changing economic climate significantly. This is the view of where we got to in our first quarter. I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you. Members of the Cabinet, any questions? Silence. Okay, can I take that report as been agreed in that case? Agreed. Okay, then on to item 9, financial planning framework. Councillor Phillip.
This is where I get even more depressed. You can tell it's a Good Friday today. We're starting to look. We're looking at what we have to do for next year much sooner than we would normally do. We're further advanced in the budget planning process than we are. And that's entirely because the pressures that we've got in our budget for next year are significant. If we consider that our staff costs are somewhere in the region of 24 million, if you put a 2% rise on that and compare that to a 5% rise, that gives us a significant gap. We know that there are pressures on everything from a fuel point of view. If we look at the costs of our refuse contract, which goes up by October CPI, and we start paying that at the beginning of November, we've got pressures from various other things. There are pressures as well from construction and therefore pressures on Qualis. We have a significant pressure on our budget for next year. I apologise to members who heard me say over the past few years, each year, that this was the toughest budget we've had to do. Next year is going to be the toughest budget that we've had to do until it gets to the one after that, which will be tougher still. We have been fortunate in that we are a very well-run council. We've been a well-run council for many years now, balancing our budget, not making over much pressure on our reserves. We're fortunate that as we came into this financial year, our reserves were sitting at our minimum entitled level rather than below. But we have a real problem for next year. As I said at the scrutiny panel on Monday, and my Cabinet colleagues already know, we're doing significant work within the Cabinet, working with our lead officers, looking at the areas of the budget which may be tractable to making either revenue gains or savings. I'm not going to hold out the optimism that it'll be easy. It won't be easy. We are going to have to start making decisions between things that we don't want to do, things that we really don't want to do, and things that we absolutely cannot do. But at the end of it, when I come to this chamber in February next year, I have to bring in a budget that keeps us as a council operating. We don't want to hit any of our frontline services in a way that will impact our residents, but we will, to do that, have to make some fairly hard decisions. This paper sets out where we are to start off with this. We know that there's a lot of work going on. There's a lot of work being done in the background. I'd really like to thank my finance officers who are making a significant amount of work on this to make sure to support the various different directorates and the various directorates on the work that they're doing to really get into the budgets that they've got. I would love to get to a point where I can come forward in February with a balanced budget with few difficult decisions. I'm not sure we'll get quite there, but let's see where we can do. This sets the scene for where we are. And on that cheerful note, I'll take questions, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Phillip. Members, questions? Okay, no questions online either. Councillor Kane.
You mentioned revenue gains. Where do you expect to have revenue gains from?
Councillor Kane, that's a really good question. That's tied into the question that I've asked my Cabinet colleagues, because if we can do things by increasing the amount of revenue coming in, that means that's savings that we don't have to make. One of the challenges is we're looking at something that's going to start happening in April next year. That is quite a short time for doing revenue gains. We have, over time, been quite prudent in what we've done. We funded, for example, the shopping park. That's come online now and delivering revenue. We have put in place Qualis, which some of the caveats I've already mentioned aside will over time start to drive more revenue. We did put out to Qualis on a secondment basis the asset management for the council. That is already starting to drive additional revenue coming in, because we're actually taking a more professional look at how our rent and rent reviews are taking place. I'm not going to guess what other Cabinet colleagues are going to come up with as other ones, but I just want to put the two sides of the coin. Part of it is savings, part of it is revenue. I've got no problems if we generate lots more revenue, we don't need to make as many savings. I suspect we're probably going to focus more on the savings for next year, but as I said, the year after that will be more challenging, but that gives us a bit longer to actually get things in place to generate that revenue.
Thank you, Councillor Phillip. I will just comment, this is the hardest budget round that I've known in 24 years of being on this council. I'm expecting it to be difficult for years to come. This isn't just about finding savings for this year, as Councillor Phillip has said. It's about setting in motion real fundamental transformational change in order to bring costs down in the future whilst we still deliver those essential services to people. I think it's important to realise it's not just the inflationary pressures that we're now facing. They're bad enough as it is, but of course we're in that post-pandemic period as well, where we're still seeing some of the ramifications of that time and the implications for our spending patterns and our revenue patterns. I'm sure members will realise our car parks haven't gone back to what they were. A fundamental source of income, they've not recovered. And indeed, when we see some of the problems we have as a council, it comes from the post-pandemic piece where we're short of staffing and supply side issues as well. So this is going to be a real struggle to make sure we do the right things. I'm pleased that Qualis is playing a very important part in what we're doing, and all those people who were naysayers in the beginning will realise as we move along the importance of what Qualis can help us to achieve as a council. I have every confidence we can come through this time, but it will be difficult. We've had meetings already on the budget, as Councillor Phillip said. We've started early, which is an important thing to do, and some very constructive conversations, cross services as well, not just working in silos, but across services, and that's so important to achieve the right type of savings that we need for the future. But of course, quite rightly, as Councillor Kane has just picked up, we do need to improve our revenue streams as well. But if I can thank officers alongside Councillor Phillip for what they're doing so far, but I just have a feeling we've got a long way to go, and this is just the beginning of the budget process. It's likely to get tougher before it gets any easier. But thank you, Councillor Phillip. We've got the recommendations before us. Can we agree those recommendations? Oh, sorry. Sam, Councillor Kane.
Sorry, I just wanted to make the comment that it's worth pointing out that this is not exclusively our problem here in this district. This is across the nation. All districts, all counties are facing exactly the same problems, and it's how this council deals with it that will see us through the next couple of years. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Kane. I think that's very important that members do remember that it's every single council up and down this country, whatever their size, wherever they are, that are suffering similar problems. Indeed, the bigger the council, the bigger the problems. So the more services you deliver, the harder it becomes. So this is not just for us, but it's a problem for everybody, and will take time. I have taken recommendations, Councillor Murray, but I will take what you have to say.
I only wanted to make 2 points, Chairman, and I don't think they're controversial. I agree that we've got a difficult situation, and we need to decide as a council what are the services that are absolutely the priority that we need to protect, and we also need to have at the forefront our most vulnerable and most marginalised groups within our community. And I know that we're not mainly the Social Services Authority, obviously, but I will use this meeting to say I hope the county will have that very much in their mind as a priority, and in the services where it does apply for EFDC, protecting those communities must be a priority.
Point taken, Councillor Murray. Members, we've got the recommendations before us. Can we agree those recommendations? Agree. Thank you. Councillor Phillip, it's certainly your evening. Item 10, Qualis Quarterly Monitoring.
Thank you, Chairman. I point out it's probably only the first half of my evening. My colleague, Councillor Holly Whitbread's got 3 reports following me. And it has to be said, this is partly a difficult one because we're further on in the year than we would otherwise be. Qualis's financial year comes to a close in about 7 hours' time. So they're most of the way through Q4. And as Councillor Helen Kane has already pointed out, we actually brought next year's one-year business plan to overview and scrutiny earlier on this year. And that one-year business plan is couched in the knowledge of where Qualis was by the end of Q3. We are still working through getting planning permission for the Roundhill site, and that is having the same effect on the Q3 results for Qualis as the Epping sites used to have prior to that, namely that until we get planning permission, we have to keep the costs allocated differently, and it shows up badly. Essentially, Qualis is tracking along its planned route. As I say, we have factored this into the one-year business plan for next year. I'm happy to take questions on the Qualis report, but do note that it is somewhat old now.
Thank you. Members, any questions? No? Councillor Kane.
Thank you. On the Roundhill side, what is the delay? Because I thought that the application was successful.
The application is not yet successful. We're still talking with Qualis is still talking with the local planning authority. Obviously, the changes, as I mentioned in the previous report, in the construction industry have significantly increased costs of constructing development, and as such that has significant impacts on the viability of what was being proposed. I believe the local planning authority has today, or maybe late yesterday, come back with some advice from a pre-planning application, and we wait to see how that goes through the whole planning process. I won't prejudge a planning decision.
Thank you. Any other members? No? Okay, therefore can I agree that report? Thank you. Item 11, changing landscape of housing. Councillor Holly Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman. And I've got a series of quite technical reports actually this evening, but I have got both Deborah and Tom here, which is useful. So in relation to the changing landscape for housing, there have been numerous changes nationally around how social housing is regulated. Obviously at Epping Forest we take the quality of our homes and our estates very seriously, and it's trying to meet that decent home standard and the concept of having great places to live, and also a sense of community and consultation with residents. However, this report largely talks about the framework in which we assess that, and the new expectations that we have from government, largely following Grenfell and changes which have resulted from that, and having a much stricter overview of social housing providers. As set out in this paper, this council will adopt a co-regulatory response They're working with boards and also councillors. And something that's quite important to emphasise actually is the increased responsibility of councillors, particularly myself as the portfolio holder, cabinet and leader of the council. We're taking a risk-based approach to look at where the risks may be, and when looking at the quality of our estates and our properties, also engaging with tenants. I mean, customer services is also at the heart of this and at the heart of the expectation of us as a housing provider. So as I say, it's quite technical. We've had numerous briefings as a cabinet, and I've been in regular contact with Deborah to try and understand in full our responsibilities and also the officers' new responsibilities and the resource that this will take as well. Thank you.
Okay, members. So it's technical paper. We've got officer support this evening. Any questions? I think this is because Cabinet's had a number of briefings on it already. Okay, if we can agree the recommendations as set out. If we then move on to item 12, Limes Farm Estate tender report update.
Thank you, Chairman. This is, as the report states, a tender update on the Limes Farm estate. Limes Farm is part of the area where we're doing regeneration projects. Although there are some nice-to-haves here, there are also major work projects which we have to complete. We're looking at a £6.5 million investment in total and a mixture of different works. So we're very conscious, and we've been conscious at the time of writing this report, about how the world is changing economically, and particularly having the financial liability that we're putting on some of our private tenants. So what we have done in this report is set out support in terms of providing and installing doors as a piece of support there. Also, we had the further financial measures put in place previously, where we offered a number of tenants the opportunity to buy their homes at the market rate. So this report suggests that we appoint Econ Regeneration to fulfil the works, and I'm happy to take any questions, or I'm sure Deborah will as well. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Phillip.
Sorry.
Basically, a very simple one first. Is this a fixed price contract?
I believe that to be the case, but yes, it is.
Deborah.
Sorry, if I can also add that the contract cost was agreed pre all the inflational pressures, so in the current market it does present as good value for the council and the residents.
Thank you.
Chairman, if I might just
Yes,
come back on that. Are we confident that given the change in price of things like raw materials, that the company is still going to be secure fulfilling the contract at this price?
Yes, we've confirmed that with them.
Good. Okay, thank you very much. Any other members of the Cabinet? Members in the room? Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Chairman. I have two questions. Do I take it from that, and I think I must do then, from the question the Councillor Phillip asked and the answer that we have, that there's absolutely no mechanism in the contract for any of these prices to be revisited at the request of the contractor. So if I can ask that question first, and then I've got a completely different question.
Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you. Yes, there has been a sense of urgency to bring this paper to Cabinet because we are on a time frame in terms of signing the contract with the supplier. However, if this paper does get agreed this evening, we will meet that time frame, and therefore the costs are as stated in the paper.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Murray, you had one more question?
Yes, and we may have received it in an earlier report, and if we have, I apologise, but I missed it. We've got one simple paragraph on page 59 about residents having significant input into the works on the estate. I personally would have liked a little bit more detail about the mechanism of engagement with residents, and what kind of response rate there was. I apologise if we've had that in an earlier report, and perhaps outside of the meeting via email, Ms Fenton can direct me where I would find that information. Thank you.
Councillor Holly Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Murray. In terms of engagement, we do have extensive engagement with the Residents Association and our tenants directly. I'll pass to Deborah just to talk a little bit more about this case in particular. But I would like to thank Rachel Smith, who leads on the community engagement side, both on this site in Limes Farm, where there's a lot of work being done to identify the projects that the residents want to see, as well as making them understand what we need to deliver as well, linking into our earlier report. But Rachel's done a really fantastic job there, and actually we're really building up the residents associations successfully across the district, and also working with community champions, many of which are based on the estates.
Thank you. Deborah.
Thank you. Just to add to Councillor Whitbread's statement there, I will get a paper produced so members have oversight as to how we consult and actually co-create schemes with residents, because consultation has moved a long way, and we do now work with them to create schemes, not just ask their opinion on schemes.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Patel.
Thank you, Chairman. On table 1 on page 62, where we've got the tender figures and the contract period, there's quite a large variance from top to bottom in both the tender sum and in the contract period. Is there any glaring reasons why some may have priced themselves too high or stated that they may take longer than others?
Yeah, Deborah.
That's just the way it seems to work in this world of contractors with these big contracts. So I haven't got anything specific I can give you on that, I'm afraid.
Okay, members, you've got the recommendations before you in a very full report. Can we take those as a bit? Oh, Councillor Wixley. Councillor Wixley, you sound wonderful, but we do need you to turn it on.
No, I think I was muted and I couldn't unmute myself, but now I can. So I'm sorry about that. But yeah, my question was about the consultation with residents. It's an issue I've raised quite a bit in the past because a number of, quite a substantial body of residents in the ward that I represent used to be represented by what was called a Debden Tenants Panel. That went out of existence. I can understand why, because there were problems, and I can fully understand that. But I just wonder if there's any progress to sort of recreating that or something similar, so that the residents I represent and others in Debden wards can have the representation that they probably deserve, and so that they can be consulted on issues.
Yeah, Councillor Wixley, you just heard Deborah say that she'll be bringing back a report on consultation. So I'm sure you'll hear something very shortly. So I don't think we can't really go on about individual areas this evening. This is about Limes Farm regeneration and tender, but we will come back to you in the future. Members, you've got before you this evening 3 recommendations on Limes Farm. Can we take those as being agreed? Super. If we could then move on to the Housing and Asset Management System project. Councillor Holly Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman. The final technical report of the evening. So this follows on from a report that was agreed by Cabinet in June 2021 last year in relation to housing and asset management system and the hopeful benefits that this will have. I hope the members had an opportunity to read this in full. But the recommendation is that we note the progress of the implementation of this and look at the cost benefit analysis, and there'll be a further update to Cabinet in April 2023. And any questions, we've got Tom here to answer. Thank you.
Super, thank you very much. Members, any questions? Any members online? No? Okay, can I agree the recommendations? Agreed. Thank you very much. Any other business? There's no any other business. No reason to exclude the public and press. I bring the meeting to a close. Thank you very much.